when you set up the remote connection, say this is my remote cluster, and to the question about many to one and one to many, I mean, you can add, even outside of being supported, you could easily add multiple connections. But as soon as I had set this up, it did a key exchange on my remote cluster target, and under the assumption that I'm going to someday want to engage DR and replicate that data back, that remote connection is always built by default. So you'll never have to go and make sure I reset up my remote connection back. That's going to stay there on the target. So remote clusters, there's my source. So my primary site will always have a connection back. But where I'm at a point where I need to take one of those clones or take one of my VMs that's being replicated, and my primary site's gone. So in fact, let's pull the plug.
Have you ever seen that before?
So
find your cable. You gonna?
What's that?
Try to find your key. Going to disconnect there.
Oh.
I was originally going to take a knife and just cut the thing, and I wanted to bring a chainsaw in, but Sarah wouldn't let me.
So now my
over that one.
Couple more kicks.
Chainsaw.
primary site is gone.
Got it
Reload here.
Is Christopher still going to get a chance to pull out the cable?
Mm-hmm. I think he's lost his.
I know, I'm waiting for him.
Oh, you'll get a chance. Whoever wanted to power it off. So I need to go back and
This is like a
pick a clone, and
unless it's someone from the audience.
again, I'm using snapshots to make that happen. So I pick a snapshot that I want to go back to from 2:00 p.m. to 3 p.m.
And I'm sorry, maybe I missed it, but is there anything regarding RPOs and RTOs and?
It's a 5-minute window on snapshots now. There's no schedule per se. It's continually replicating.
That's one of the roadmap things that's coming. So where you can basically specify effectively the kind of RTOs and RPOs that you want on a per VM basis.
So now I've got my recovery clone. So whether I wanted to again bring this machine back on to recover a file or recover an object, or something happened and I need to engage DR, this is how I do it. So even if I didn't have to, I had a real core pool, I had a real emergency, a real disconnect between my DR site and the outside world. Being able to do this also makes it possible and sane to do DR tests without having to wait for a disaster. Because DR plans, as well laid out as they may be, no one ever wants to take the time, especially in our market, or has the resources or the maintenance window time to go and say, let's do a full weekend-long DR test. Whereas now, I can power this thing back on. Maybe I just want to make sure the NICs are disconnected and just validate the integrity that everything is there. And I've got, if I had to, I could engage DR. It's no different from actually doing it. So you're bringing a lot of sanity into the 1, 2, 5 IT guys who don't have a lot of sanity or sleep or a life. So this allows them to take vacations that they could never do before.
Originally, when we were planning this demo, I was going to be like Larry the backhoe driver who comes in and just like cuts the cable, right? But TSA never lets you on with any of the fun stuff.
And that's the extent of recovering from it. And the snapshots. So if I go back to my source. My source cluster, and I'm taking snapshots either on a manual basis or a scheduled basis, those snapshots will also get sent over in addition to the replication snapshots. So I'm always going to have everything that I'm doing on my own snapshot wise plus everything that replication sends over. So if you know that, say, the hour before patch Tuesday, let's say I need to do a snapshot and I want to just go back to that one, then you'll have redundancy in your redundancy. Yeah, additional snapshots will be replicated over on that clone. So then that's going to get pushed over as well.
We should probably plug in all our cables one of these days.
Yeah. Well, and this is the
recovery component.
alert
Yeah.
system that they'll see. I mean, they aren't going to get
Yeah.
bombarded with confusing or, they don't understand how to interpret that. It's very simple and straightforward. We don't have our email configured, so we would have to set up an email server, but that's part of the, the one-time config housekeeping SMTP time. And then email alerts will get sent out for capacity. So if you're hitting capacity on memory and disk and CPU utilization, usually just disk and memory, those are the most finite resources. If you're at thresholds for those, you'll get notified of your utilization. And then you're always going to get one if you're at a point where if you had a node fail, you wouldn't have enough memory to start the other running VMs on the remaining 2, 3 X nodes. And then you'll also have that notice because we use that technology for live updates. And we kind of skipped over that, but I mean, being able to do rolling updates, so when we push out for more updates, there's no maintenance windows required. That's part of the, Scribe makes that possible because we can just evacuate the VMs from one node, update them individually, and there's no risk because there's no file system to break by powering off a node. So the ease of use goes up another notch when you don't have to worry about how do I schedule maintenance windows to do updates. We keep it up and running the whole time.
A big
Someone
part,
wanted to power off a cord.
Who wants to? Chris, you want to pull a cable?
I think that one.
He likes to break stuff.
I'm gonna pull this cable. Oh, okay. You're wired. We can pull cables. You want to pull a cable? Which one do we want to shut down? Who wants to do
Node
it?
one, the top one is.
Is that the one we're hooked into? How about the second or third
Something
one?
running a VM.
Are you in? Which one?
I'll just move the.
Yeah, do one running a
22.
VM. How about move something over. I'll pull the second one. Move something over to the second one.
Which is the second one? The second one from the top or second one from the bottom?
That one. That one from the side. I'll just point at it.
Yeah, that one. 10 or 22. It's just such a.
Now the next question is, am I going to pull the right cord?
Yeah.
Oh, this
It should be the second from the top.
Should be 10 or 20.
Should be
21, 22.
This one. Yeah, this is the one where we'll cord pull this guy.
Yeah.
We'll do it live.
Is it live or is it Memorex?
Yeah. What's the worst?
We'll wait till it gets moved over there. Oh, by the way, hide all those. Those things are annoying. They get down at the bottom. There's the hide all.
Is that like ejecting the warp core?
Let's pour water on it.
Yeah.
While we're waiting, can I just ask, sort of from a company thing, obviously you've got big ambitions with obviously a huge market being SMB, only 75 people. How are you funding yourself, and are you just...
We have multiple rounds of funding. We're backed by little guys like Benchmark Capital and a multitude of other VCs. We're always actively looking at funding resources, but we're always, more importantly, looking at building a good operational plan around the business. So we are funding for growth. Honestly, I think this year is going to be huge for this hyper-convergent space. Everybody's saying it now. You're getting a lot of the big analysts are saying, their 2015 predictions are, this is a year where we're going to see some pretty exciting things out of hyper-convergence. I believe it as well. I think we've seen a lot of, evolution in the market space. But 2.5 years ago when we launched this, it was kind of an unknown component at that point, and honestly, when VMware came out with the Evo Rail, we were like jumping up and down shouting, yes, that is a validation of the consumption model. And since then, the business was going well before. Since then, wow. It's because from that perspective, people are talking about hyperconvergence now, and pretty much when they're talking about it, we're basically one of the companies they're mentioning in it. So it's been great for us. I think this year you're going to see continued growth in it, and I think it's just basically awareness and kind of the press awareness now around basically where the market itself is moving to. So
how are you thinking of paying your investors and your back? Is it profits because you employ hardly any people, or are you going to be needing to IPO or be bought by somebody, or is that too far down the track?
I've sold companies before, and it's not the funnest thing in the world. I would hearken it to you've got this, say you got like a 1972 Porsche Carrera RS, not that I'm keeping score, but that's kind of one of those vehicles I always wanted. And selling your company is a lot like, you sell it, they give you a check, and you can basically cash the check, but if the first thing they do is throw in a brick on the accelerator and drive it off a cliff, it's not exactly fun to watch, right? So to me, that's what kind of selling to companies is like. But no, that said, I mean, you know, who knows? I mean, we don't build companies to get acquired. I mean, this is actually the third venture-backed startup that me and like Phil's been involved with me in nearly all of those, and we are building a company to build a company. We don't build a company to be acquired. We don't build a company to, you know, like go IPO, to cash out, to do all this stuff. We're building a company to build a company, and we're building a product that we like to build because this is something that you know, we're passionate about. So that's where we are. You know, what comes along, hell, I don't know. You know, we'll wait and see, and you know, just to see how the whole thing works out. But you know, it is what it is. That said, I'm going to pull some cables.
Break Morse code.
There we go.
Yep.
Node 2 is dead.
Oh no.
Let's go. It's like, at least they are pretty quiet.
Those are quiet.
Running
Yeah.
a thermometer or anything on it?
For benchmarking, well, we could. Yeah.
We do it all the time. So what's going to happen is the state machine is going to detect that machine is down. It's going to go. It's going to flip in. Usually it takes, you know, like probably like 2.5 minutes is the last, I think, kind of time demo that we did on that. But it'll pop up. It'll detect that it's down, and then it's going to, you know, effectively take and spin that virtual machine up on, you know, one of the other remaining nodes within the cluster.
So what is it doing during that time, during that 2.5 minutes to validate, okay, this node is actually down?
I'll let Phil talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, so those collectors that we talk about are always running, and what's happening is, you know, it's probably like pinging the node right now, saying, okay, it's unable to reach it. And what happens is the state machine, there's transitions that we've defined within the state machine that say, okay, one particular node is down. Any VMs that were running on that node now need to be started up on other nodes, right? So those sorts of operations, looks like so now it's set data redundancy is degraded, right? That's a scribe condition where it's realized that, yeah, you have blocks now that are not fully replicated, right? So that's a problem. And those sorts of conditions then trigger transitions in the state machines, which will automatically, ultimately bring things back to normal, at least as normal as I can get with a node down. But
And I think there's the most likely scenario, I mean, beyond an actual node failure or both power supplies dying, because the hardware's good, right? There is a network problem. There is a spanning tree convergence issue, and the backplane switch somehow got brought into the topology, and that node lost backplane connectivity. So for all intents and purposes, without a backplane network, it is down. So that's why, you know, it'll give it some time to make sure, yes, it is really down. It's not just a false positive, and you know, they're having network issues. Let's not mark the node as down and evacuate everything from it.
And those virtual devices in Scribe as well, they have what we call leases, right? And they have to periodically assert in the entire cluster that, yes, like there's a consensus among all these nodes that one particular VSD is currently mounted on the second node. That lease has to expire. So the leases last about 2 minutes, right? So that once we know that 2 minutes, right? So that means that you can't actually mount that VSD on a different node until that lease expires. That way it guarantees data safety. You can't, through some situation, that VM we know it's down because
is it the lock on the file system, or
it's not. No, it's we use Paxos protocol again for that. So what happens is when that lease expires, and that second node, if for some reason that node were still on but it were just isolated, it would no longer be able to via Paxos renegotiate that lease. And what happens then is it purposely crashes the VM as soon as that lease expires. Okay. VM crashed, and because you know at that moment it's probably going to be coming up on another node, and that node is going to want to start.
Okay, so it doesn't see that it's not actually running. It has to wait for the lease to expire.
Right, the lease expires.
Okay.
At that point, if the VM is still running, it gets crashed, even if it's not running. The other nodes don't know if it's running or not, right? Because they can't communicate, so they have to wait for that lease expiration to happen.
Honestly, this feels like a long time, but at 2 in the morning, I wouldn't even be awake yet. This is...
Yeah, and you wouldn't have to be concerned about it. And that's the other thing about Scribe, is that there's no...
to go with it.
You know, the complexities of maintaining the integrity of a file system, let alone a clustered one, are beyond the realm of imagination for most of our users who don't want to be... They don't want to, and they don't have a need to, and they don't care about it. They just want it to work. So when you take away and completely excise a file system from a VM platform, whether it's the integrity of the file system or having to deal with, a RAID set, or you have a drive fail and that needs to then you have to go through a RAID rebuild. Managing the storage goes away, as well as the recovery times are far shorter when you have any type of disruption. So
what are you guys running on the back end to monitor, or is it just something you coded in-house?
It's homegrown. So we have, and this is actually covered in detail in Storage Field Day as well, but it's essentially a system of collectors, similar to how like Nagios or something runs, right? You've got all these sensors that are out there sort of monitoring disk health, the temperature of the node, all these sorts of things, right? And if anything goes out of whack, we have these state machines that will then take action and move VMs or whatever needs to happen, initiate a drive recovery, those sorts of things. All gets automatically started.
Do you have like monitoring metrics in this dash if someone wanted to see like the state? Because I can't remember seeing anything like that.
That's coming this year.
Oh, okay, another feature.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
you look here, there's the gas gauge. There's a blank spot there. You'll see that that's going to be populated with individual VM performance versus the cluster.
Okay,
so.
nice.
Okay. So is it not possible now to see some kind of data store usage, IOPS, latencies?
On the command line, it's possible, but it's not in the UI yet.
And the user or the administrator can log into the command line to actually.
I'm not sure what our policy is on that.
The admin user, the non-privileged non-root user, can still see the SAR information from the node. So yeah, you can still get that info from the command line. Otherwise, it's easy to just leverage perfmon or an individual VM tool. But at the cluster level, you can use the tools from the CLI.
Now, one of the other exciting things about this, like we're not like announcing it yet, but basically like within the next couple of iteration releases, this is also effectively going to be a fully mobile compliant interface as well. So when you're away and you've got only your iPhone or your iPad or any type of other mobile device, you're going to be able to pop in there and actually do those cluster configuration components from your mobole device. I think that'll be a first in the virtualization space. So I don't know of any other mobile tools. So we'll see how that evolves. But I mean, honestly, I think that's going to be great for our market, because inevitably, when does this stuff break in the SMB? Is it 9 to 5 when they're at their desk and have all their thick client tools to access it? No, it's a Saturday morning with their kid's soccer game, right? That's when stuff breaks. So we think from that simplicity perspective, being able to have this as a mobile accessible interface as well is going to be key to the system.
So this interface is available on all nodes, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
You can go to any one of the nodes within the system and basically
they're all the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I mean, what if we just pull that up? What is it? Like 10.23.
So if you have like multiple Robo offices, is there like some kind of central thing you can?
Oh, what?
Yeah. Currently, no.
Cluster manager.
Oh,
yeah.
No.
Yeah, something like that.
That's a.
It's on the roadmap as well.
That's a request.
But this is so this is on basically, now we're on that third node in the cluster, and as you can see, it's basically all the same stuff. You can go through and configure the cluster, just the same on that one as you can can the other nodes.
If I did have 2 or 3 admins and they both want to log in at the same time and they happen to log in at different nodes, would they notice?
You wouldn't have any indication that both of you are logged in.
He changes that.
You can see, so those little pop-ups that happen, so like when you're creating VMs, moving VMs and all that stuff, it pops up in both spots, right? So whenever somebody starts a VM up, you would see it on this browser and this browser. We do it all the time when we're doing demos and we're jumping on top of each other, right? When we're doing multiple demos at the same time, it's a... But yeah, the
events are logged as far as the timeline of what happened and when, so you could see, so in case there was, some type of overlap, but...
I see an update button. How easy is it to get new features, versions?
If there was an available update, you would just see update available, and you would click install update and walk away. You wouldn't have to notify your users. You wouldn't have to shut down your cluster. You don't have to do anything. As long as you have enough free memory to power down a node and start those VMs or migrate those to other nodes, then
and it'll check thing for also, like, basically any of the action items. You notice of the 10 action items and how it's orange, there's that one critical item in there. If you tried to do an update while a node was down, it'd be like, no, a node's down, you can't do an update. Like, get the node up, and then we can go through and process with the update. So there's a lot of intelligence built into that update system where it.
But will you see all the nodes and say like install on the node, or will it be like a completely automatic process?
Completely automatic.
Yeah, it goes node to node.
It goes node to node.
Whole cluster. Yep.
Yeah, it's a
Migrates the
cluster-wide
VMs
update.
off like full rolling. We've got a lot of the guys that have been working with us doing beta of this for a while, and they're literally comfortable enough with it now. They schedule the update. They're like, I'm going to go to lunch. Takes about 45 minutes to an hour. Boom, kick that off. I'm going to go to lunch. Come back, and they're updated to the latest version.
Good.
Is there part of what you were talking about earlier is the storage not immediately rebuilding? Is that part of this over here? Because obviously, as a storage node rebuilds, you've lost your second redundant copy during the update. Do you not so bothered about that? You just wait for it to come back up, or are those?
Yeah, because what we have found, honestly, computer systems these days have become relatively reliable, and what we have found in our experience of having 1,000 customers is they lose a node not because there's something physically wrong with the node, but probably the intern tripped over the power cord or shut the wrong box down in the rack. 90% of the time, that's what it is. There is nothing wrong with the box, and if there is, they call up like this node is down. It won't come back up. There's like something serious is wrong with it. The CPU burned up or something like that. Then we can basically start a rebalance of that data. I mean, we can basically call up support, and we'll okay, we're going to go ahead and we'll just kick that off. But really, likely the data on those disks is fine. If you lose a node, the disks are probably just fine. So we can basically ship, overnight a replacement chassis and effectively do a chassis swap, put the disks back in, you fire it up, and you're good to go.
And the most common occurrence, given that it's commodity x86 hardware, is going to be, not a spinning disk, but a disk failure. So in disk failure scenarios, that is a case where we will evacuate that disk of all its data and ensure that there are 2 copies. So you don't have to wait. There's certainly no risk with a disk failure, because then you'll get a replacement. They're hot swap.
While you are rebooting a node for an upgrade, some of your VM blocks aren't protected. Or when that box is rebooting, does it see the nodes down and do that double write onto the third one?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So any writes are then
no
protected.
matter what, any write gets full data
It's
protection.
reprotected.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before the write's acknowledged.
So if something hasn't been written, okay, there's a potential here if we're splitting hairs, but anything that gets written will always be protected.
Right.
Yeah. And they're truly synchronous acknowledged writes. It's not going into a cache and then simulating the acknowledgement. It's 2 full writes through the OS. So
You had said something a minute ago about your policy about somebody seeing something. Is it kind of your standard posture that the end user doesn't have access to the command line at all, or they just don't have root, or how?
We've given some.
Yeah, generally not.
Talk to them on the phone and you trust them to not break it?
It's a general rule just to not expose root access. The tool set and everything, when Collier said everything can be done and scripted, the entire functionality of the UI is all
demos that I will occasionally do for people that want to get in and look at APIs and automation and stuff, where I can say, a good example is, I've got one where I've got, just a template, like a sysprep template to do that, VDI clone stuff. And I'm like, okay, I want to make 50 clones. Well, that takes me like a couple of minutes, and I can literally do it with, basically a for loop and bash, right? To go in and create that. You can do things like, do snapshot manipulation. You can do, I got one set up where I've got, effectively a cron job that runs on the system that does, basically does an hourly snapshot once an hour, and basically then does a, daily once a day, weekly, and then basically does.
I would argue that the underlying tool set, we call it the SE tool set. It's a entire.
Yeah.
It's not even a language. There's a commands tool set. It's tab complete. It's arguably more powerful than ESXCLI would ever be. So
how much is available there that's not available here?
Very little.
Honestly, very little. It comes down to more like scripting and scheduling component stuff. Just because there's a lot you could do with that, and then also effectively looping techniques. Like if I wanted to clone it, it'd be great if within the interface, you could say, well, here's this box. I want a VDI. I want to clone it, and I want to clone it 20 times, right? being able to do that. That's not in the, though I think that's also in the list of things we're going to add to it. So, but yeah. But yeah, there's a lot you can do with it. But really, there's not that much more you can do with it that you can't do with, you know.
There's, I guess, from the troubleshooting and debugging standpoint, there is a lot in there that will never make it in the UI. But you know,
Right.
but
Sure, and
that's
I
for
don't wanna
support
see
and
all
things
that.
like that. Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, what kind of cool stuff is hiding in there that
Right.
I don't see here?
Well, once again, you know, I mean, it's like those are those.
I want that.
Yeah.
Those are those tools we
There's
use to
tools like
maintain that high net promoter score, right? That's what the support guys. So, but we are, I mean, our support team is phenomenal. I mean, if you wanted to, so you're going through and you create a template, like this is a template I want to clone it, you know, 50 times. Call up our support team. Be like, can you clone this VM 50 times for me? Sure, we'll get it done. You know, and then you basically open up a tunnel. We get on there and do it. We will help you do any of that stuff. So,
Cool.